Joining us right now on the Comcast Business Hotline, senior NFL reporter for Underdog Fantasy, insider for Bleacher Report, and local guy, James Palmer on the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing today, James?
I'm floating, guys. I'm doing great. I mean, I wore green on Sunday in the Superdome. I watched one of the most dominant performances we've seen in a Super Bowl by, maybe a complete team and specifically a defensive line by one position group in recent memory. It was unreal. It really was.
It really was. And I want to start with you have been covering the league, so you've been around the Chiefs when they were good, and and a couple moments that were bad, but this was just different. How surprised were you, let's say, maybe the third quarter, early second quarter, when they had only had one first down on the first play and hadn't had one 3-4 straight series? What was going through your mind then before the game got out of hand when they just weren't moving the ball, the Chiefs?
Yeah, what I was seeing from the D-line up front, from Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and company, was, all right, we don't really care about the run. And I started having these flashbacks, and probably everybody in Philadelphia has remembered when you're pulling your hair out at Andy Reid, going like, why aren't we running the ball, back when he was the head coach in Philly? And I was like, I feel like as wide as I'm seeing these splits, like they're just going to try to contain Mahomes, not let him use his legs, which he does really, really well in the postseason, make sure he stays in the pocket, collapse it on him, and we really don't think you can run the ball or you're going to. And when I'm watching the end of that second quarter, I'm like, okay, well, it's 17-0. If anything's going to happen for Kansas City to get rolling, this is what we see Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes do well, though, which is double up around halftime, right? They're so good at it. I've been around them a bunch. I've seen them do it, where they score right before the break and they get the ball out of the half. So I'm going, okay, if they get 7 out of here, it's 17-7, and they get the ball back, we got a game. But then when Mahomes throws the pick, I literally was like, this game's over. Like, I don't think that the time that they have to catch up is now been eliminated when he throws that pick at the end of the second quarter, and Philly ends up having the opportunity to at least put some points on the board. They end up scoring. But, like, the opportunity for them to be explosive and come back has now been erased by getting a chance to double up. And they haven't been able to score quickly all season. So in my opinion, I said now it's becoming a point to where if Jalen Hurts and company don't turn the ball over, they literally cannot come back from that.
How surprised were you that Mahomes turned the ball over as much as he did? And the pressure that was on him was relentless.
It was unreal. It was unbelievable. I think it was a game high, 19 double teams that Jalen Carter faced, and he still had 2 quarterback pressures, but that attention allowed these other guys, where they have 4 other guys with at least 4 pressures on Mahomes. I haven't seen him that uncomfortable and that flustered and that space mentally where he just didn't have answers. I think the last time I saw it, honestly, was the Super Bowl loss to Tampa, where I was at that game and he ran for more yards, I think, behind the line of scrimmage than any human ever, trying to make something happen. We haven't seen him really play without answers in so long. And I think it's mainly because with 4, they could sit in the middle of the field, and they have good linebackers, and Philly has great coverage, and they had answers for everything. Like I think the other part about this is we got to give Vic Fangio and the rest of that defensive staff, Christian Parker on the back end, I think played a huge part in this, as well as he knows. Kansas City, from going against him twice a year, all those years in Denver before he came over this year, like they were so prepared for what Kansas City brings. Patrick had no time to really think to make the second play, and I think that's the part that was really, really surprising to me. And the turnovers was almost, I don't want to say shocking, but like he just doesn't do that in big games, and it was because of as comfortable as he was.
James, talking about Jalen Hurts, he sacrificed during the regular season. We've been talking about it for Saquon Barkley. And while his raw numbers weren't great, his per attempt numbers were pretty good. Were people, do you think they underestimated Jalen Hurts a bit too much, especially in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, because both quarterbacks in those games on the opposing side were talked about a lot more than him?
I completely agree. I think there was no player, or I would say person, in this game with more pressure on them coming into Sunday. And I know the Chiefs are going for a three-peat, and maybe there was a good amount of pressure on Nick Sirianni because of everything he's been through. But I think the player that had the most to gain or lose in that game was Jalen Hurts. And I think whoever was second in your mind is probably a pretty far second, because everything that we've talked about, like, oh, they're winning in spite of Jalen Hurts, or this is an unbelievably talented roster, and you hear it all the time. What if Justin Herbert is the quarterback? Like, I think we saw again in a Super Bowl, he outplayed the best player on the planet. He's done it twice now. And I think you can't deny when games get big, he makes big plays. He was the calmest guy on the field. And we're talking about as much, how much pressure Mahomes was under and how flustered he looked mentally. I don't think, Jalen Hurts' pulse went up one bit. He had an answer for everything. He was unbelievably calm. The back shoulder.
Let's put James on hold. See if you could clear that up there, Silvana, because he's talking about just how well he played. He played
and Jalen
tremendously well.
It's something kind of we were waiting for. That we knew Saquon Barkley had carried the load at times during the season, but I think most people that followed the Eagles knew that Jalen Hurts could definitely just step up to when they needed him. They needed him in the Super Bowl. He stepped up big time. I mean, big time.
Yeah, it was like for us, it was they weren't passing a lot, but he wasn't inefficient passing.
No, I thought he
didn't pay attention.
Well, that's the funny part is I thought he was good all season long, and people were saying, well, no, he's not getting the attempts, he's not doing. You don't need to. If you don't need to, why would you? I think it really comes down to that more than anything else.
Yeah, it was amazing. James is back. Sorry about that. Your phone seemed to have went out. You were talking about the pressure on Jalen Hurts when you left off.
Yeah, it's just, I think there was nobody even close to him in terms of the amount of pressure in this game and the most to win and the most to lose. And I think you saw the way the Chiefs played defense. I think that helped Jalen. I think Steve Spagnuolo was like, Saquon Barkley's not going to beat us. And if Jalen Hurts throws the ball unbelievably well downfield, then so be it. That we can't cover everybody. And Jalen Hurts did that. I think the back shoulder throw to A.J. Brown was outstanding. It's an audible he called at the line of scrimmage. It's a great ball. He was accurate. He was calm. He never put the ball really in harm's way outside of the pick, which put Kansas City down at the 2. Maybe you were in field goal range, but at the same time, I understand trying to take the throw there. He was great against the pressure that they tried to bring. Obviously, his offensive line is outstanding in front of him, but he never panicked, and that's happened to almost every quarterback that has faced this Chiefs defense. That's how they've won games over the last 2 seasons, which is we'll bring unblocked pressure, you're going to be flustered, and you're going to throw the football either away, you're going to be sacked for a 12-yard loss, or you're going to turn it over. And Jalen was in complete control during a lot of that. And I think what we saw again is this is the second time he's outplayed Mahomes in a Super Bowl. And Mahomes is the best player on the planet. So I think we might need to start changing a little bit of the way Jalen Hurts is perceived, because at the same time, why wouldn't you lean offensively into the best performance we've seen from a running back in recent memory, right? Why not lean into that? And I think what it showed me even further is, and I'm not comparing him to Brady, I'm not comparing him to anybody, great quarterbacks lean into what makes their team great. If that's what matters, winning matters before your stats, we've complimented Brady on that in the past. And maybe we should compliment Jalen on it for this season.
I mean, the one thing I thought was extremely noticeable was the physicality of the Eagles. I mean, they've done it a lot this year to a lot of different teams. You didn't really expect this going into a Super Bowl game, but they were nothing but physical out there. Am I right?
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, it was as equally as they were physical, Kansas City was just flat. I mean, guys were just walking around. I mean, when you're in the stadium, right, cameras go certain ways. You're watching at home, cameras are seeing things. I love watching the sideline. I love watching guys coming off the field. And Kansas City was just slowly walking off the field after possessions. And Philly's sprinting back to the sideline. You could see the vibe between the two sides. I just think there was so much confidence. There was so much physicality, like you said. They play fast. And I think that's the best part, specifically on defense. Vic is not the most complicated of scheme, but if you know it really well and the way he has you play, you can play extremely fast. And they were able to do that. They were everywhere on the field. And I think when you look at the way Howie's always built this, year after year after year, it's been such a focus on the trenches. Every draft, reloading even when you already have all pros there. You get Cam Jurgens when you still have Kelsey. You get Jalen Carter when you still have Fletch there. His ability to keep reloading on talent in the trenches and wearing you out, that showed again. But they also are great in the open field. They tackled well. They did everything fundamentally right. And it was almost an old school victory. You didn't have to out-scheme them. You just had to beat them physically, and that's what Philly did.
Well, James, we really appreciate you coming on with us, spending some time. I know you're a busy, busy man these days. Unlike last time, it looks like, Kellen Moore, they're losing just their offensive coordinator, so they'll have more continuity. Any idea, have you heard anything about where the Eagles may go as far as replacing Moore now that he's the Saints head coach?
Yeah, I know in-house is a thought for sure. I know it's early in the process, and it stinks because they're way behind, actually, in terms of where everybody else is. And I do know it was kind of slim pickings, honestly, for offensive minds for some of these guys that were, getting filled in other spots, and Clint Kubiak getting, kind of his introductory press conference like today. Like, guys with experience in play calling, kind of got gobbled up pretty quickly, and there weren't a lot available. So there might be a situation where you have, again, like we had with Brian Johnson, and I'm not making any comparison to Brian or whoever comes in, but like an inexperienced play caller, right? Somebody who hasn't done it before. And I think that's the other part for Jalen, real quick. Like, this guy's been it's been a different play caller year after year after year for him. And they're going to do it again. So I think in-house is a place they're going to look for sure first to try to keep some sort of continuity.
Well, we really appreciate it, James. Great work as usual, and we'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right, that was James Palmer. He just does a tremendous job. The senior NFL reporter for Underdog Fantasy, who definitely doubted Jalen Hurts, not James, the website, and then insider for Bleacher Report, who also doubted Jalen Hurts. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, make sure you like and subscribe. And you can do that kind of over here if you want more of the best show ever.